Welcome to the joy of genealogy. If you've never watched another one of my videos, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome. So glad that you decided to join us on this journey through Scripture. This channel is dedicated to the study of Scripture as a whole, but specifically on those passages that tend to get skipped. It is my goal to go through as many passages as I can, focusing primarily on those passages that look like a bunch of names, they look like a bunch of places, they don't really make a whole lot of sense. I am not an expert, but I have been going through those passages on my own and hoping that in doing so, I can present it in a way that makes sense to you and that maybe you can learn something along with me. If you've never watched another one of my videos, I highly recommend you start from the beginning, as this channel is meant to be a series. However, I hope that you get something out of this video in particular and every video individually. As I said before, we are in the middle of a series. We are covering the 12 sons of Israel. Today's video is on Issachar, part B. I highly recommend, if nothing else, you watch my video on covering the 12 tribes to make a little bit more sense of what we're doing here. But today's video is going to be on the genealogy of Issachar. It's going to be another really short video. The upcoming videos are going to be really short videos. That is primarily due to lack of content. There's not really a whole lot that is known about these people or their genealogies. There's a ton of scripture about their tribes. All of that to say, when I get to part C, it is my goal to do some really, really in-depth work with each of the 12 tribes, covering them from Genesis all the way through Judges. We're still covering part A and part B. So upcoming videos, again, might be a little short, but part C is going to be really, really in-depth. So something to look forward to. But for today's video, we are going to talk about Issachar, specifically Issachar's genealogy. So as I said before, there's really not a whole lot of content to the genealogy of Issachar. He's basically covered in 3 passages, all of which, you guessed it, we're going to look at today. So Issachar, specifically his genealogy, is covered in Genesis 46, verse 13. And the sons of Issachar, Tola, Puvah, and Job, and Shimron. And of the 3 passages, that's your first one. I would love to tell you that there's more to the second and third passage. There's a little bit more, but not a whole lot. Again, because you're on this channel, we're going to cover what little scripture there is regardless. So moving on from Genesis 46, we have Numbers, chapter 26, verse 23. Of the sons of Issachar after their families, of Tola, the Tolites, and if you know anything about my channel, you know that I'm going to capitalize that because it's a people group, and I find it's a little bit easier to follow if you capitalize people groups and I italicize places. That way you can kind of see what you're looking at. One thing I haven't mentioned so far is if you would like a copy of this Excel document, I'd be happy to give you one. You can email me at joyofgenealogy@yahoo.com and you can follow along. I have an Excel document for every video, and if you'd like to tweak it and make it your own and color coordinate it, whatever you'd like to do, just send me an email, let me know what video you're watching, and I can send you the document. My goal for the end of this channel is to have a huge document that you can Control F and look at any person in scripture and see where they fit in the genealogy. Granted, you could technically go to Bible Gateway and do that, but the idea behind this channel is to make everything a little bit more visual and concise. So moving on with Numbers 26, we have the family of Tola, the Tolites, the family of Pua, the Punites. Actually, this goes from verse 23 through verse 25. We got the Tolites, the Punites of Jashub, the Jashubites, of Shimron, the family of the Shimronites. These are the families of Issachar, according to those that were numbered of them, 64,003. I'm just going to make a note here at the bottom usually do this off to the right, but verse 25 total 64,300. So yeah, let me translate a little bit of King James for you. 3 score, so 20 times 3, plus 4,000, 64,300. Moving on to the last passage, which is the most in-depth passage, we have First Chronicles, chapter 7. And the book opens up with Issachar's genealogy. So we have First Chronicles, chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Now the sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, and you're noticing a little bit of spelling changes here, but they are the same person. Yashub and Shimron, 4. Did Issachar have more children? More than likely. However, these are the 4 main heads of the family. This is what the Bible follows, as much as it does follow the 4 sons of Issachar, Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. And the sons of Tola, again, if you know anything about my channel, you know this is how I delineate genealogies. I will use different symbols just because I'm not using a family tree. I'm using an Excel document. And there is a reason for that. I find Excel's a little bit easier to use in Word format. A family tree is a better picture, I'll admit, but it's a little bit harder to do on the computer. And I like the idea of the Excel document because I can tweak it, and so can you. So with Tola, we're going to use the symbol to delineate his genealogy in verse 2. And the sons of Tola, Uzai, Raphiah, and Jeriel, and Jemiah, Jibsam, and Shemuel. Heads of their father's house, to wit of Tola, they were valiant men of might in their generation, whose number was in the days of David 22,600. So for Tola, I'm just going to make a note up here. Hopefully that's not too confusing for you. 22,600. And I will make a note in this verse, whose number was in the days of David. The numbers, while they can seem unimportant, if you actually track them, do kind of make sense in the terms of general scripture. I wouldn't focus too much on those, but the Bible does mention how many people there are in each tribe, in Numbers and in the book of Judges, but this number in particular is just for the family of Tola. And continuing the genealogy, we're going to go from Uzai. I'm just going to use this symbol. Verse 3, the sons of Uzai, Izriah. And Izriah's genealogy, just going to save a little bit of space here and go forward in the same line. The sons of Izriah, Michael. Finally, a pretty basic name that you recognize. And the funny thing is, I believe it's Michael. It could be Michael. The Bible pronounces things a little bit differently, but I'm going with Michael. I'm not using my little cheater over here with my audio Bible. It's Michael for all intents and purposes. Obadiah, Joel, Ishiah, 5, all of them chief men. Now, again, we've gone from Issachar in Genesis all the way to Chronicles, and we are at Issachar's child, grandchild, great-grandchild, great-great-grandchild. Provided the Bible actually follows that genealogy. As I've said in other videos, the word son can mean son-in-law. It can mean like adoptive son, but in this case, it should be generational. Lastly, verse 4 and 5, which is some basic information. And with them by their generations, after the house of their fathers, were bands of soldiers for war, 36,000 men, for they had many wives and sons. In this case, 36,000 in the line of Israel. Verse 5, and their brethren among all the families of Issachar. Verse 5, and their brethren among all the families of Issachar, valiant men of might, reckoned in all by their genealogies, 7,000. So again, 20 times 4, 87,000. I know those numbers might be a little bit confusing. I'm not intending to focus on them, like I said before, but they are noted here. And as you go through scripture, you'll see the numbers go up and down and fluctuate. Typically they increase, but again, there's been times where people have been judged and they've decreased. The entire point here, if I had to make one specific point, is that per the promise of Abraham, as numerous as the stars, as the sands on the sea, if you can count them, you can count Abraham's children. So just from one line, 87,000. There's 12 lines, and those have increased and increased and increased. It's a fulfillment of the promise of God to Abraham. And each of these tribes are being blessed in different ways numerically. So for Issachar, a relatively minor one of the 12 tribes, you got 87,000 men. This is essentially the genealogy of Issachar. Everything we know about his genealogy in scripture. Again, one of the minor of the 12 tribes, but he still has 3 separate passages covering his line, people group. I appreciate any comments or any feedback that you'd like to give. If you'd like a copy of the Excel document to follow along at home, it is joyofgenealogy@yahoo.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.